welcome to 15 Minutes with Patsy. Cut. Hi, and welcome to 15 Minutes with Patsy. As you know, this coming Sunday is when we celebrate Easter, and I just wanted to read a few scriptures on the resurrection morning. In Luke 24, 6 and 7, it says, "He is not here, but he has risen. Remember how he spoke to you when he was still in Galilee, saying, 'It is necessary that the Son of Man be betrayed into the hands of sinful men, but crucified and rise on the third day.'" And it is because of that resurrection morning that we now get the free gift of salvation. I want to introduce my guest for today. She's a very good friend, a very amazing, wonderful woman. She's very smart. She's very giving. If there's ever a need, she'll find a way to fulfill it. She's just an amazing woman to me. And she's here to tell her story. And I want you to welcome April Cook.
Thank you, Miss Patsy. Well, since she gave me a compliment, I'm going to give her a compliment too. I met Patsy on my journey in trying to find my place. And I was planted at Propel, and I met Patsy, and I don't know, from day one I felt so comfortable around her, and I felt a connection with her, and even though there might be an age difference, she's become one of my best friends that I have, and I've learned a lot from her just in the short time that I've known you, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life, and I know others are grateful to have her as well. So thank you for allowing me to come on here and share some of my testimonies that I have. I will be honest, I have quite a few. I'm not sure we'll get through 15 minutes, but we will eventually get my story told, no matter how long it takes. Mm-hmm. But thinking about where I should start, it threw me backwards for a little bit because I have so much that's just in my head that I just want to share with people. And so it was a challenge, I'm not going to lie, to figure out where I needed to start. So I guess what I'm going to do is start with my first testimony that I want to share. And to me, it's one of the biggest testimonies that I have ever really had in my entire life. I've had other testimonies, but nothing that has stood out among the testimonies compared to what I went through several years ago. And so with that said, nobody can tell me that God is not real. Nobody can change my mind about it. And if somebody would try to change my mind, I would just have to tell them that they haven't experienced God like I have. And probably, just maybe, they haven't experienced God because they haven't released control of whatever it is that you've been praying for or dealing with. And that's one thing that I have learned through my journey, is releasing that control so that it allows God to move. Not only move in the situation, but move in you. So I just want to throw that out there because I think that's very important for people, especially new believers, that doesn't know, they might be questioning, why am I not hearing God? Why is he not answering prayers? It might be because you're still holding on to what you're fighting. And I'm going to get into a little bit of that and how I was doing that in my situation. Because that was me. It was definitely me. I was the one not allowing God to move fully in that situation because I was still trying to control the situation. I was still trying to manage and fix the situation. And when the problem was I wasn't allowing God to fix the situation. So, going back to about 3 or 4 years ago, and I do have my notes here because I don't want to miss something that's important to tell you. But going back to about 3 or 4 years ago, I experienced a darkness that I had never experienced before. Depression, anxiety was really hitting me the hardest for the first time in my life. Now, I've experienced other types of depression and situational depression, and stuff like that, but this was different. And it was to the point where I really wanted to take my life. It got to that point. And I have never been to that point. I was the one that would always question what makes someone want to harm themselves. And now I can fully understand and say that I understand how people get to that point. But the goal is to get you out of that thinking, out of that mindset, because nobody should have to feel that way. So a little bit about me. I've been married to my husband for going on 24 years. I have been with him since I was 16 years old, and I am 46 now. So that gives you a little bit of a number on how long I have been with him. I do have 3 grown adult children. My youngest is 19, almost 20. He is still at home, but my other 2 are out and building their life. And we have a new grandbaby, and she is almost 6 months old. So over the last 3 or 4 years, a lot has happened. And while it may seem that I'm sharing that it might seem like we were a happy family, that we were a loving family, we are, but we've also experienced heartache and depression and addiction and frustration and sadness as well. In the Bible, it talks about how the man should be the head of the household, or he should be the man, the head of the household that leads his family to God. But that didn't happen in our family. I always felt at a young age that when I met my husband, there was a reason that God put me there. I never really knew, because at 16, your relationship with Jesus can be different than it is as an adult. And at that age, I didn't really know what a relationship with Jesus was. Yes, I went to church, and I grew up in church. But I wasn't taught the importance of a relationship with Jesus. It was more about, if you weren't Baptist, you're going to hell. Things like that. So we weren't taught the correct way. And I did not learn this stuff until I started attending Propel. And I've learned so much that it's not about your religion, it's about your relationship. But over the time of having our children and things to that nature, things happen. We make choices. Sometimes we don't make the best choices. We're human. Sometimes we think we're making the right choices with no intention of hurting someone else, but sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. So a lot of stuff has happened to me over the years that affected me. It affected my children. But being a young mother, and as I know that some people will understand, and I know that Patsy would understand, is sometimes you think you can fix the person. And everything will eventually be great after you fix the person. And you think that you're strong enough to be able to do that, and that person would be wanting to change for you. But that's not how it is. And sometimes you don't learn that right away. And
very true.
And it spirals out of control. Mm-hmm. And so there for the longest time, I did not want to separate my family. I didn't want to be that divorced family. I didn't want to be where I was having to share my kids, because my husband and I went through that as well. And so I just didn't want to put my kids through that. But let alone did I know that I was hurting my children as well. And things that they would see and hear. It wasn't intentional. But as a young mother, you think that you're doing the right thing, right? So all in all, I probably should have left, but I didn't. I toughed it out. I made choices that I probably shouldn't have made, but I can't beat myself up for that. I've actually had to forgive myself for that because I did harbor that regret for the longest time. And it doesn't matter if my kids don't forgive me. It does not matter if my friends don't forgive me. Whoever, it's not about them at this point. It's about me forgiving myself for what I did. And I'm so glad that I've been able to do that because I've been able to move forward in my life. Again, we all do not make the right choices, and we're all going to make mistakes. So we have to remember that. We have to give grace. So I learned to quit living in the past and what choices I have made. I've learned to forgive myself for choices that I have made that may have hurt others. Whether they have forgiven me or they continue to hold the past or hold the grudge, I can't live that way anymore, so I chose to forgive myself. I do not regret some of the choices I made, though, and one of those choices was standing by my husband over the last 3 to 4 years. I could have left. Lord knows I could have left, but God told me to hold on. And I would question God, why are you making me hold on? Why are you putting me through this? Why am I having to go through this? And at the time, you don't know the answer to that. And it is okay to question God. If you've ever been told not to, it is okay to question God. And I'm not saying that it's for everybody. I'm not saying that everybody should stay with their husband if there's mental, physical abuse going on. I would never suggest that to anybody. Don't put yourself in harm's way. And I know it's easy sometimes to get caught up in the middle of the fighting and just, it's so easy to just try to think, he's going to get better. He's going to get better. And I think that was probably one of the hardest parts for me because I just kept, again, thinking, if I could just fix him, if I could just fix him. But what I am going to say is you have to depend on the Lord and Savior to help you and to guide you through whatever it is that you are going through. So my husband was doing fine for a very long time. A little bit about Jeff, and I wish that one day he tells his testimony, but he's kind of very reserved right now. Yeah. But Jeff didn't have the best life growing up. He went through a lot of abuse and things that no child should have went through, as a lot of people have. And so it kind of sent him down the path of destruction from that point on. He hung around the wrong people, got involved in drinking and drugs, and that became his life. When I met him, I always say he was the bad boy, I was the good girl. And I couldn't understand why was I being put with a bad boy. And a lot of people would say, you're crazy. Again, I felt that God put me in his life for a reason, but I did not know that reason as well as I know the reason now. So with that said,